we can protest about things and we can walk down the streets, which is really great to ways around this. But unless we start getting people inside the house and start making the rules and start changing things and start following what the people actually want, then nothing's going to change.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Ray. Welcome to another episode of the New South Wales One Nation TV. Today, I'm joined with Adam Zahra. He is the candidate for the Macarthur seat, running for One Nation. Super excited to have a chat with him. Thank you so much for joining me today, Adam.
Thanks for having me, Evelyn. It's a great opportunity.
Yes. Now, I really want to get into the nitty-gritties. I want to get into what policies you're keen on, what you're passionate about, why the heck you would get into politics. But I'll start off with a little bit about who you are. People want to know, who the person is behind the name. So if you're happy to share, I'd love to know what led you to this particular point, a bit about your history.
Sure, no worries. Okay. So, well, basically, I've been brought up and I was born in Campbelltown, brought up in Campbelltown area. Okay, so I've gone to all the local schools. Well, I went not to all the local schools. I went to a couple of Catholic schools, actually. So I started off at primary school, and that was at Mary Immaculate, and then went through to high school at Mount Carmel. Then, obviously, I left school at about year 11. Wasn't for me, actually. So I finished off at school and went into an apprenticeship. So I started off at TAFE. So I've had a bit of experience with the TAFEs and the systems through TAFE. It was a while ago now. I'm sure they might have been a little bit more updated, but there's a few things that probably need to still be addressed with those. But I'm a sign writer by trade. So I can paint a sign and I can design a sign, but I can't do it on the computer. So that made me a little bit redundant. So from not being able to use computers and the computer-aided design, I went through to, what did I do next? I went through to actually superannuation funds management. So I worked in the city for a while with customer service, talking to a lot of different people about their money and their future. And then from there, I actually went to factory work. So I decided that the office life was a bit too much travel, was too hard on the trains. And I decided to drive to and from work instead. And I went and found a good factory job. And I got to meet a different demographic of people. So got to learn different cultures and different people and different ways of getting around, people's thought processes and things like that. So that was a good thing. And then from there, I started my own small business as a contractor for blinds installation. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So since 2007, so I started in the global financial crisis. And then I struggled for the first couple of years to get a name for myself. And then I went from there to making a good name for myself in the local area. Macarthur is the area that I service as a contractor. I have a few contracts. And then I also have my own small business and I run that as well. So that brings me to today.
Yeah, very diverse background. You started off almost like a tradesman, I would say, to a city guy in a suit, in a business suit, back to almost a trade, I guess you could say, with what you're doing, and a business owner. So you've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. But my next question would be, why did you decide to enter politics?
Okay, so with politics, I've always had an interest in politics, funnily enough. Okay, we all get sidetracked from work and, putting food on the table and things like that. But I remember when I was, especially at school, I was actually quite interested in politics. And I actually remember, the big thing I remember was when Mark Latham went up for Prime Minister against John Howard. And I remember being involved, like interested in that whole scenario. And I remember Mark Latham very well, and I remember John Howard very well. And I think from there, I got a little bit interested, and I was kind of, that was the big election. That was the election that I was really keen on. And then from there, I kind of followed them a little bit and went from there. But I chose politics because I'm a put up or shut up kind of guy, actually. So what happens is, I can sit here and go, well, I don't agree with the mandates. I don't agree with, them telling us that we have to stay inside. I don't agree with all these different things. I don't agree with the way that they're securing the water. I don't agree with, I think they should build, better dams, or they should, why are they closing down coal-fired power stations when they've got no alternative? So I'm kind of like, I can sit here and I can talk about it all the time and nothing will really get done. And I think I've said before somewhere else that we can protest about things and we can walk down the streets, which is really great to ways around us. But unless we start getting people inside the house and start making the rules and start changing things and start following what the people actually want, then nothing's going to change. So I did join because I want to make change.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. As much as we have every right to protest and to speak and to have our say, we need tangible things. And something tangible that we can do is getting butts on seats for politicians so the changes can happen legislatively and with policy and things like that. But what led you to One Nation? I mean, there are a lot of political parties out there. What drew you to this particular one?
Okay, so obviously before I chose to become a candidate I was open slather. I could have tried to go for anyone. So I sat down and actually read policies, if you could believe it. I actually sat down and read a lot of the policies for different parties, which I recommend a lot of people should do out there, is sit down and read the policies, because that's what all the parties have to stand by, and that's what they're going to do. Pauline Hanson'S One Nation, it just resonated with me. I feel like, I'm center right, I'm conservative. I don't mind standing up and having a go and doing some gutsy things, but I like to just live my life. I like for people to live their lives, and we should be able to do that pretty freely. And Senator Malcolm Roberts actually inspired me as well. That was the day I remember. He did a speech in the Senate, and that was called the House of Review. And when he said that speech just hit me right there, and I'm just like, you know what? That's it. Next day, I applied.
Yeah.
That was the big thing for me. Obviously, I know I've seen Pauline Hanson, and I've seen her stand up, and I've seen her. She's a fighter, and we need that as well. So I guess what happens is she is the name behind the party. It's her standing up, and I like the way that she just stands up and she just will just let people have it. So that makes it very important for me. So I stand by Pauline. I have for a long time, and then I guess Malcolm Roberts was the one who just goes, you know what, let's do it.
Yeah, he was the cherry on top.
He's
delivered some amazing speeches for sure. And I love how bold One Nation are. They're unapologetic and they just sort of say it how it is. They cut the fat straight off the meat, which is just what we all deserve from our politicians. No funny business, no condescending, patronizing talk, just cut the fat off the meat and just give it to us straight. So One Nation certainly do that. And I'm super grateful to have someone like you on board with it as well. Now, you're running for the Macarthur seat.
Yes.
Now, for people who might not be familiar with that area, I was hoping you could sort of shed a little bit of light on some things that you've noticed in the area that maybe haven't been handled very well by previous political people in power there, things that need change, and things that you would like to do in particular if you were given that opportunity.
Okay, so like on a kind of state level, like we're in the boom area of like Sydney. Okay, so they're putting in houses, and it's just a flurry of activity. Our population is set to double by the time 2040 comes. So that's right. So we've got, I think that I haven't got the exact figures of the numbers of actually people living here, but I know that there's about 190,000 people who can vote. So if that's just people who are over 18 that are registered to vote, we have a lot of people here. And what happens is, if that's going to then double, where's the infrastructure? I've traveled the trains every day. I've traveled the trains since I was 16 years old. I've used buses. My kids at the moment are having trouble getting buses home from school, so we're always having to change and jump in. I mean, I know that's a bus company thing, but these things could be helped or looked upon as targets for local and state to sort out. I want to kind of help local and state, not here to be somebody to just veto everything. I want the best for Macarthur. So I think definitely Campbelltown Hospital definitely needs a really good looking over. I mean, we're doing it's getting massive upgrades and stuff as we speak, but that needs to probably be looked at a little bit more. We need to, make sure that we need to make sure that we're enticing business to come to Macarthur. We can, increase revenue. We can increase people to come and invest in Macarthur. It's a good area. Land's cheaper than the city. There's plenty of, spaces for factories to be built, and we can create jobs by doing that. Let's get big business out here. Let's get the business out here, and let's start looking, moving them away from the city and into. And when we can do that by increasing transport, we've got an airport that's being built at Bradgeries Creek. Let's utilise that. There's light rails that they can talk about, things like that. So I'm here to really sit down and make Macarthur grow, and let's put it into the future.
And what are your thoughts on the whole idea of renewable energy? Because that's like the hot topic at the moment. There's that whole climate emergency lingering like a black cloud over everybody's heads. Are we going to be taxed more? Are we going to have affordable energy? Is this even something sustainable? I know you have some thoughts about, how you would like to tackle that, and I'd love to sort of hear it.
Yeah, okay. So, look, I'm pretty practical. So I don't believe you should get rid of power stations if you haven't got anything to directly replace them. Why would you shut down? I've got the name here, Earing Power Station, which is 25 to 30% of our electricity for the state, and there's nothing really tangible to go in place. They did talk about the hydro pump. I've got the name, the pumped hydro power project. So that was I've got some figures here anyway. So the Earing produces 2,880 megawatts of power, and then we're going to shut that one down, and then we're going to try to replace it with something that produces 600 megawatts of power during peak demand. That's a bit, I don't know, those numbers don't seem to match up quite right, and I'm worried that how can we grow the state, and how can we grow the country if they're going to start pulling back on base load power supplies, and then have nothing to really replace it. It's a common phrase that's been going around. The wind don't blow and the sun don't shine all the time. So how are we going to take that to head? Like, we need to have a strong baseload power supply, and then explore our other options before we do those things.
Have you thought about other options? I know I've spoken to a couple of other candidates for One Nation, and they mentioned sort of nuclear power. Is that something you're open to?
Yes, I think nuclear power is actually pretty good. Something like, I think we should have that discussion. I think nuclear power gets turned. They just go, oh, nuclear power, it's going to blow up, blah blah blah, so much radiation and all this kind of stuff, and then Chernobyl this and Chernobyl that. So I've got a figure there too. So nuclear energy at the moment is producing 4% of the global power, and it's only had 0.07 deaths, and that's including the deaths in Chernobyl and things like that. So then we're looking at solar power, and it has 0.02% deaths, and it's 1% of the global energy. There's an interesting fact though, as far as greenhouse gas emissions go, nuclear does 3 tons a year, and solar is 5 tons a year.
Yeah, wow. They don't talk about that, do they?
They don't talk about that side of things. So that was just that was something just pulled off the internet. There was a bit of a report that I read. So that's interesting to investigate those kind of things and see. I think using old technologies and then maybe using old ideas with new technology, we could maybe clean up a lot of systems and get things happening quickly. So then we can worry about exploring other options.
Yeah, that's very true. And what you mentioned at the beginning when you sort of were talking about why you got into politics, and you mentioned water security. I mean, it's hard to sort of imagine that right now because Australia seems to be underwater, which is, hard to imagine considering the summer that we had a couple of years ago. But how do you feel about water security, and what do you think we as Australians need to start considering when we look and tackling that particular area?
Yeah, okay. So, look, water security is really important. And just want to say, thanks to all the SES and volunteers that are helping out with all the emergencies at the moment. They're doing a great job. I've been looking at the news and things like that. I went down to my local SES and tried to make some sandbags and stuff like that, but they had it under control. I would have just been in the way. So, but I like to thank all of them up front. Okay, so water security. Okay, as I said, that Macarthur itself is set to double its population in the next 15 years.
Yeah.
And then they haven't built another dam to handle that kind of capacity. I was actually speaking to somebody today. Actually, I had a job this morning before I came here to do this, and what happened was he actually works for New South Wales Water, and he said that a big problem is 33% evaporation rate on our stored waters. So that's a third of our water that gets just evaporated into the air. So then we could look at some ways of simply by adding something to stop that from happening. I know Japan has, he did mention that Japan has, they put these little plastic balls all over the water, but it does degrade water health. So we have to look at, there's always ways that, what some give, rob Peter to pay Paul, and there's always something wrong there. So, but we could always work something like that out. But, the Bradfield hybrid dam scheme, that he was actually said that could happen. That's just a matter of going through the Great Australian Range, dividing range, and running pipes and things like that. I mean, obviously it's more complicated than that, but securing Australia's water, and we can actually, he said there's enough water there to for us not to worry about water so much. So that's important things as well. So I think, to really take a big look at where Australia is going and how we're growing, and then what infrastructure, if we haven't built a dam for 30 or 40 years or something like that, I think the number was. And so we need to really look at that. If we're going to increase our population, we need to increase our water structure.
Now, you mentioned just then the word infrastructure, and at the moment, we sell a lot of our infrastructure and we sell a lot of our assets to overseas and things like that. And, a lot of Aussies are always just, wondering, like, when will Australia come first? And how is this affecting our cost of living? How is this affecting our tax, et cetera, et cetera? Now, you've mentioned before a multinational tax reform. I'd love to hear what your ideas around that particular subject are.
Yeah, I think, we need to investigate exactly there's a lot of smoke and mirrors about it. Like, as much as I try to investigate it and have a look at it myself, it's very hard to get the information to see where and who owns. I did some basic searches and I found that like Energy Australia is foreign owned. So to me, I think I actually went with Energy Australia because I actually thought Energy Australia was Australian.
Yeah.
Turns out that it wasn't. So I feel like it's been misled. And then, selling off our mines and big business, it just reduces jobs. It just reduces, it lets the money goes offshore. And how does Australia grow? We can't rely on the taxpayer to keep footing the bill. The country itself needs to start making money for itself. And I think we can do that by, owning and having our own infrastructure and stop passing it on to privatization and things like that. Like the roads, most heavily tolled road, I know this is state too, but most heavily tolled state in Australia, New South Wales.
I didn't know that.
Yes, it is. And so what happens is most of those roads, I believe, are foreign owned or partially foreign owned. So that's money that goes offshore. They make millions upon millions upon millions of dollars a year, and it all goes offshore when the taxpayers, the taxpayer is the investor in Australia. I don't like to actually call a taxpayer. We're investors. We're investing in our future. We're investing in our kids' future and our kids' children's future. And if we keep, so we're happy to pay our taxes and make sure that we can live better lives and provide for our children and children's children. If we keep selling off, it's a matter of time before, a company, big international company goes bankrupt. And what do we can't turn our lights back on? That's my biggest fear.
Yeah, I think it's a fear of a lot of Australians at the moment. I mean, the world has been pretty unleveled for the last couple of years. It's been a bit of chaos, and all of these questions are starting to come to the front, and a lot of us are asking those questions, and a lot of us would like some answers. And as you said, no smoke, no mirrors, just straight answers. Now, when I sort of got a little bit of your background at the beginning here, you mentioned that you were a TAFE student, that you've been in the TAFE system, and then you mentioned something interesting. You said to me that there are a lot of things you wanted to talk about, a lot of changes and a lot of things to do around the TAFE system. Could you kind of expand on that for me?
Yeah, for sure. So I went to TAFE, it was a while ago now, and it was just on the start of the computer, I guess, boom. It was when the internet started speeding up and we started using computers a lot more. So, I mean, I only did 1 year at school with computers. I'm not a computer guy. But what happened was, so I became a sign writer. So I'm at TAFE. I think I was 15 years old starting at TAFE. And what happened was, the industry started changing. So TAFE was teaching me how to hand draw signage, like I could pounce layouts and hand draw big design, and we could transfer small images up onto big and trace it all out. And then I can paint by hand as well. So I can use paintbrushes and all that kind of stuff and mix paints, all that kind of thing. But the industry was really traversing across to the computerization. So what would happen was I was actually by the time I left high school, I was basically, by the time I left TAFE, I was redundant. So I did 4 years worth of TAFE and I never touched a computer in that time. They never showed us how to do computer aided design. They never showed us programs are probably older than the hills now, but Corel Draw and all these ones where you enter the sign, like the words and stuff into the computer, and then it transfers to a plotter, and then the plotter cuts it all out vinyl, peel the vinyl and stick it onto your signs. So, I mean, the TAFE teachers and the people who were running programming the TAFE courses and stuff like that, they would have known that the industry was shifting, and there was a whole generation of us. There was 4 classes for the 4 years, and all of us never even learned the computers. Now, some of us were lucky enough to have employment where they would teach the computers, but a lot of us, well, myself included, I was in the factory laying the signs and stuff like that, so I never got the computer side of things. So that I think they need to foresee a little bit more with where it's going, the industry is going, and then design the courses around that to move forward. I know that Dale McNamara, another candidate for up in Newcastle way, he's big in the mines and all those kind of things. And he said he can't get Australian skilled TAFE people because they don't have enough, the machines where you program it all in and they plot out all the stuff. I can't remember the name of it now, sorry, but all the computer stuff where it's all programming and that's what the kids want to use is all the programming stuff. It's all old school milling and machining and stuff like that. So upgrading those kind of things would be a lot very important, and I think we could investigate that.
It definitely sounds like a little bit of foresight would be helpful, especially investing 4 years. I had no idea that that's how much time you had to invest for sign writing. Like, wow, hats off to all the sign writers out there. Little did I know about the art and the trade that would be involved in that. But I imagine the devastation for people who have invested that much time and then the whole industry changes and you don't have the skill to keep up with it. That's quite sad. Now, the last 2 years have been, as I said before, pretty up and down. Now we've faced a pandemic, we've faced loss of jobs because of mandates. We've faced so much division. I know you have felt that there's a lot of division within the community. Love to know your thoughts on the last couple of years. Has it been handled well? Has it been handled poorly? And how are we going to, I guess, unite again and get rid of the division within our communities?
Yeah, okay. So I think with, the mandates, I can understand why the mandates might have been important right at the start and, try and kill the curve and, and try to catch up and play play to the virus, understand how it works and what it's doing. But obviously it started to, not work. But I think the biggest thing was that I felt our leaders really did incite a fair bit of fear into people. I think that people were willing to take their word and everyone that I saw was helping out. We would wear masks, and we followed the rules and all that kind of stuff, restrictions. But then when they started, I think more fear started coming up. And then, if you didn't wear a mask and have somebody come up to you and go, "Hey man, you haven't got a mask on," you're like, "Wait a second, sorry mate, it's right here." And you have these kind of things. I think that started the division. And I think, when somebody says, "Don't go see your mum, don't go see your dad, because, you don't want to be the one to make them sick," it starts to really raise fear in people. When people get scared, people start to react. And I just seen it myself, walking through the shops. And, I think it's surprising to see now that people that I've been speaking to at the shops when we've all been masked up, and then you don't recognize them now, now that they're unmasked. It's very good. So it's a different kind of experience. You're like relearning to see the people again. Yeah, I think the division, between even now with there's still mandates happening. You still can't go to pubs, you still can't go to clubs, you still can't do these kind of things. I just don't see how in Australia, in a free Australia, that these mandates have been beneficial and followed the way of Australian life. So yeah, I'm about bringing the unity back into the community. I encourage people to get together and say hi to each other in the street, and shake hands and get back to it. Even the knuckle pump, just to get that human to human contact back again.
Would you say there's been like an overreach from the government in our personal lives and things like that?
Yeah, I think overreach is definitely 100%. When the government's saying that, how does a government how does somebody threaten somebody, or coerce somebody is a better word. If you don't have this particular medical procedure, you're not allowed to go out to work. And then palming it off onto employers and making them make the decision that, well,
the dirty work.
The dirty work. We've just decided to, we've decided that if you haven't had this medical procedure, even though it's still experimental and it's not fully tested, you can't work here. And I was actually so I did speak to a few guys. They were at a local, let's say, ice creamery plant. I won't mention any names. And those poor guys, the mandates hit them guys too. I mean, they've got young families. They're all confused. They're not quite sure about, to do this. Are they going to be all right after taking it, or are they still not going to be able to work by having it, just in case they had a bad reaction? And they were there, bless them, to be honest with you. They were there standing the line, holding the line, trying to just keep their freedoms of, bodily autonomy. So I feel like, that was a lot of overreach by the government.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of questions in many Australians, and not just in the state of New South Wales, but you have a look at Western Australia right now. Most people are vaccinated, and there was only a story that came in the news where a mother of 5 children is dying, and her 5 kids are all vaccinated, and they won't let the children see her. And they said, because they're not deemed as essential. And I think, if somebody's dying and they can't see their kids, what else could be essential? Like, what are they? So there are a lot of questions about these mandates, whether it's overreach, whether it's fair. Even if people do take this experimental medical procedure, like you said, is it going to make any difference at all? So I think moving forward, particularly in the political spectrum, Australians just want a straight answer. Australians, I think, want to get behind politicians who won't do the smoke and mirrors, who won't say something and then not deliver it. And I think most Australians have just had enough of the discrimination and the division, like you mentioned. So I'm grateful to hear that you're on board with ending the discrimination.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really encouraging. It's probably not going to be an easy road to be someone who stands, for ending those divisions and things. So all the best with every criticism you might get it moving forward. But again, you're on the right track. I think many Australians are desperate for this to sort of finally end. But I sort of wanted to finish off on a subject that you mentioned to me before we came into today. Something I sort of was asking you, what's something that you feel quite passionate about? And Pauline Hanson is sort of at the forefront of this particular issue. She has fronted many politicians. She's done so much hard work in this particular area, and I think it's one that's really important that needs to have the conversation, and that's family law reform. So I'd love to hear about your thoughts on that, your involvement with that, and how you'd like to see that sort of play out.
So I myself went through the family law process. I did. I had a custody drama case with for my child, and it was years and years of heartache, as a matter of fact. And I got to be honest with you, I was lucky enough to actually be successful in winning custody for my child. So I actually came out of the other side, let's say, a victor. Okay, I mean it's a poor term for it because no one really wins in the end with family law. So I remember, it's you start off with inequity straight away. So I did find that you had to prove yourself every time you were there. So that it was very, very hard. It's gut wrenching, and I guess I see it from just a average male side point of view. I've done a lot of the courses through Catholic Care and things like this, where how to communicate with the ex-partner and how to help with the child. And I think what happens is, in the end, I guess this is about being a straight shooter, and people want to hear a straight shooter. I think trying to bankrupt either parent to try and get a result is not beneficial to the child.
Yeah.
If the most important thing is the child, which everybody with family law court is about the child, $7,500 goes, well, when I was doing it, $7,500 for the child lawyer that you have to pay for, which is, it's fair enough. It has to be done. The child needs representation too. So you're happy to do it, and then the costs involved are enormous, and it could be streamlined a lot more. So I guess my point of view was that, I've seen men break down and cry saying, I can't even see my child. I think assessment needs to be made a lot quicker by the courts of like what's best for the child. Obviously, we don't want to put children into dangerous situations, that's 100% should not happen. But when you can see, after a few cases and after getting histories of the parents, and and police records and all these kind of things, and there's good people out there, there's good men, there's good women, there's good families, and they just happen to part ways. And then, that's where it's really important for the child. I find that got lost a little bit in the whole process of it. So yeah, I think it definitely needs to be investigated. There's a lot of research that needs to be done. It's so big. I know that there's a few other candidates that are really big on this as well. I stand behind Pauline for that one. I definitely, that resonates really big with me, as just a middle male kind of father perspective. And again, seeing grown men losing their homes, I just felt bankrupting somebody to get a result is not in the best interest for the child, because that child still needs their parent or mother. So if you even bankrupting a mother, if a father was trying to bankrupt a mother, that's not right. It's not going to help the children in the end.
Absolutely. Now, where can people find you, Adam? Because we've covered like a really, I guess, broad range of topics and questions, but people who are in Macarthur and who might want to find out a little bit more about specific policies and what you might do for the community, how can they reach you? Have you got any meet and greets, any face-to-face, anywhere where people can actually reach out, talk to you, have a conversation with you? And like you said at the beginning here, you read a lot of policies. So could you help direct people who might be interested in doing that?
Yeah, so it's really easy. You just click onto the party that you are interested in, and then you go through and read their policies, okay? You have to look a little bit into that and read between the lines just a little bit. And you need to see what policies meet your core values. Because if you don't want mandates, then you shouldn't vote for a party that is pro-mandate, okay? Because we know that after the election, they will bring back the mandates. So if they get in, So it's really important to you can see all the parties online. You just type then the party name in, then it goes, our policies. I know, especially with One Nation, it's very easy to see our people and our policies, and that's a big thing. So I definitely read them and see what resonates with you the most. Okay. I will say I think we should put Greens, Labor, Liberals, and Nationals last, and then get your independents up, because we are the parties for the people. We are regular people, not a career politician. I'm sure that you'll be able to get that feel by the end of this interview. I am just somebody who's trying very, very hard to make sure that my children and everybody's children have a better future, where we don't have to worry about our civil liberties just being encroached. So yeah, well, I can be also contacted on macarthur@newsouthwales.onenation.org.au. That's my email address. I am on Facebook as well, which is Adam Zahra for Macarthur, Pauline Hanson'S One Nation. So you can find me there, so I can be messaged on that. Now, I am organising in Campbelltown at Mount Annan Botanic Gardens. They're doing a challenge walk. It's a 6 and 11K challenge walk. I am setting up a group in there. So actually, Rebecca Thompson, the candidate for Hume, we border each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to partner up, and we're going to set up a group, and we're going to go and do this walk for Campbelltown and for Mount Annan. So we're going to do that walk. And what will happen there is we'll be wearing our orange, and we want our supporters and we want our fans, and always come up and say hello. I mean, I'm always contactable. As I said, I'm a person just like everybody else. I go to the shops and do shopping. You have to remember the beard. I stand out a little bit, the bald head and the big bright beards here. So yeah, definitely come and say good day. I'm not going to buy it. I'm happy. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'd like to get supporters to start emailing me, telling me what their thoughts are and what they like about Macarthur, what they don't like about Macarthur, what needs to be changed in Macarthur to make it a better place. We're about the people. We're here to listen to the people, because my perspective on things, I'm self-employed. Okay, so I don't have the same issues as maybe somebody who is employed by somebody else. So and I've been an employee. I've been an employee too. I understand the trials and tribulations of all that, but at the same time, I can't understand every little detail that's going on. I have to live and run my own life as well. So if you tell me what you think needs to be done, then I can try to help you the best I can.
Amazing. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Adam. I hope people reach out to you, and I really hope the best for the up and coming election for you.
Oh, thank you very much, Evelyn. I do appreciate the time, and I appreciate the show. You're doing great work, and I love seeing the candidates. And I think my favourite one was still Mark Latham. So number one, you came out with a big bang there, and but Rod Roberts as well. He was very informative, and all the other candidates as well, Gay and Keith and a few of those guys, Neil as well, a few guys. So good on you, and thank you for getting us out there.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, great bunch of people, and I'm really hoping that Australians can shake the, the political sort of playground. That would be amazing. So thanks again for joining me.
No worries. Thank you.